they'd just be jealous bitches.
Yeah, that's what, haters are going to hate, y'all.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line.
Well, here's Anjette. She's single. She's successful. She's got money. She's wearing all the good clothes.
She done bought her old restaurant back.
She got the good hair.
She's running all by herself, doing all this shit.
Driving around town probably in some sporty little T-Bird or something.
I might even hate on her. I'd be like, who the fuck she supposed to be?
Exactly.
But she is a hard-working individual, sounds like.
By 1955, Anjette had began dating an airline pilot. And now you got to remember, this is the time when pilots were like celebrities.
Yeah, and even the whole thing they did with the stewardess class, like, these glamorous, like literally hiring girls that were pretty, you know what I mean? Like very sexist. And yeah, it was like pilots were like gods back then, right?
Yeah. Hey, she's dating an airline pilot. That's like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's fancy. Anyway, the pilot's name was Joe Neil Gabbert. Adding more fuel to the rumor fire, Anjette had accompanied him on several trips to Texas, New Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's just zipping all over the Southwest.
Damn, look at her.
She's
jet set.
With her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And eventually they elope on June 24th, 1955 in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Anjette and her new husband returned to Macon to set up house in her residence. Now, Joe was frequently away, which Anjette didn't seem to mind. She ran her business, took care of her daughters. This marriage definitely seemed happier than the first one.
Right.
Her first marriage, she wasn't very happy. Her husband was always sick. They seemed to be always fighting about money.
Sound like he would do things and not tell her about it.
Yeah. So they were not having a good marriage. But this one, she seemed a lot happier. People thought, oh, well, she's met her match. This is great. And it was shortly after the marriage, only maybe about 4 months later, that Joe had gone to the hospital for a minor wrist surgery. And after the surgery, he had a spiked fever and a skin rash that spread all over his body. Well, doctors were baffled and didn't know what was causing his illness. And he ends up dying 5 months later.
What the hell?
From a minor wrist surgery.
Oh, my God.
So, at this point, they don't know if he had some sort of reaction to the anesthesia. Maybe some medication he was taking after this. I mean, they just don't even know.
Right.
This is really odd.
It's still, fairly basic medical science back then, right?
Anjette immediately changed her name back from the married Gabbert to Lyles, which was her first married name.
Yeah.
That was her daughter's names. But that was pretty unusual of a widow. Like, widow. She would normally keep her husband's name.
Yeah.
So the fact that she immediately changes it back raises some interest in town.
Wasn't that during a time still when you were the widow for X amount of time before you even courted or, moved on, if you will? And everybody respected a widow's time after her, or a widower's.
Well, she collected his life insurance money. With this, she bought a brand new car and a bigger, nicer house.
Okay.
What really set off talk around town was when she started dating another airline pilot only a few months after her husband's died.
Well, that's always going to get people talking.
The second husband.
Yeah, right.
It was during this time that her former mother-in-law, Mrs. Julie Lyles, an elderly woman who was lonely, moved into the household. Anjette thought it would be good to have her around, be around the kids, her grandkids. She could help out. It's good to have that sort of multi-generational experience.
Well, it's from their father. You say ex-mother-in-law?
Yeah.
So it's their father, their dead father's
this is
mother.
Their grandma.
Right. Yeah, okay.
She and her husband had owned that restaurant before. Remember, they owned it.
Right.
The son inherited it when the father died, and now Anjette has the restaurant. She was really happy to move in with Anjette, be around her grandkids, and to be back in the restaurant. I mean, she'd spent most of her days there when her husband had owned the restaurant, so she's just really happy to be there. I mean, this was like family. This was like home to her.
Yeah, like she come full circle, kind of.
Well, at some point, Anjette was going through her mother-in-law's things, and she stumbled upon a bank book. Of course, being a little nosy, she peeks around in there and finds out how much money and the assets that her mother-in-law had. She encourages her to make out a will, which is not a bad idea. I mean, if you've got a lot of money, you've got a lot of assets.
Right.
It's important to have that in place.
Yeah, you would think so.
Well, Anjette reportedly became obsessed with the will and essentially pestered the old woman to create one.
See, now that's weird.
Was just riding her ass about it. And Mrs. Lyle was not interested in any kind of will. Like, she just didn't want to do it. Yeah, I guess she would kind of get annoyed when Anjette would push her.
You're not going to make me do it. I'm an old woman. I have my ways. Yeah.
And Mrs. Lyles had a surviving son named Joseph. And Anjette was really worried that if her mother-in-law died, the son would inherit everything. And she felt like, some of that belonged to her kids. Because, they should be getting their father's share.
Well, that's not a crazy thought to be considering that. But still a little weird to be pestering someone about their will.
As I mentioned, Anjette was really into voodoo and black magic. It was not unusual to find her with candles around the house. People would see her speaking into the flames.
Okay.
Like whispering into the flames. She also had her mother-in-law and household staff, such as her housekeeper, Carmen, participate in some rituals. She believed in root work, frequented fortune tellers, and would often take her employees, household staff, her mother-in-law with her to go see these fortune tellers, these palm readers, psychics.
Nice.
Spend a lot of money for their wisdom.
Yeah.
Because these psychics and fortune tellers, they're not cheap.
No, and when they get somebody like that.
And you gotta remember, this was before Miss Cleo. So it wasn't like she could just pick up the phone and call her psychic friend.
No, you literally had to go see them.
Yeah. But I think that's fascinating. Have you ever been to like a palm reader or fortune teller?
When I was quite a bit, or I don't know, let's see, when I was around 11 years old, I lived in Shelby, North Carolina, beside palm readers.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, I got a peek on the inside.
Nice.
Yes, I did. It was basically they were conning the living shit out of the people.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the dude was like the gypsy, like Romanian gypsy kind of thing.
So he really was?
Yeah, but the chick was like a white chick. But, they've been together for all these years, and he would tell me all these different scams and shit, and I'm just a little kid. And this dude's just telling me all these fucking scams. You can do it like retail stores and stuff. Oh, yeah, totally.
Interesting.
Yeah, but maybe that was just those palm readers. Maybe the rest of them are for real.
I went to a palm reader one time in Baltimore.
Yeah.
There was like this palm reader shop or whatever down in Fells Point.
I would totally go.
Yeah, so my girlfriend and I were out on the town, like on a Friday night or something. We were like, let's go. And this lady, she told me a bunch of horse shit. Like, nothing she told me was even remotely accurate. None of it came true. I mean, she must have had me confused with somebody else.
Okay.
She had me working in like the tech field, marrying like someone from the past, like my high school sweetheart.
That's some real general shit here. Okay.
Being like a suburban housewife mom.
Oh, that's not
in the computer field. Yeah, I was just like, I came from this like loving, awesome home.
Oh.
My parents were still together. I mean, just everything she told me was just like, this bitch is cray. So yeah, it was just a waste of like
I'll tell you, here's what they do. People, from my experience, they find people who truly believe, and they work them. They're very talented at what they do, but they work them. They get they clues from the person as they talk and tell them their story, and they work you like you can't trick these people. They're very good at what they do.
Like horoscopes, and at some point I'll have to tell you about my career writing horoscopes.
Right.
And how fun that was, but I'll save that for another time.
Yeah, but she's very into that.
She's getting the root work. What'd you call
roots?
The roots?
Yeah, she's working roots on people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whispering into candles.
Well, you get up in the morning time and you're sore and you don't know why. Like, you don't know why. You didn't work hard or nothing the day before. You be like, oh, somebody's working roots on me. Somebody's working them.
Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by 1957, Mrs. Lyles had become ill. She was suffering from nausea, edema. She was hospitalized. Anjette doted on the old woman, just spending hours by her side in the hospital, bringing her all the favorite food from the restaurant, reading to her. I mean, she was like really devoted to this woman. After battling the sickness for about a month, the old woman finally passed away. She was buried next to her husband, and Anjette produced a copy of Mrs. Lyles' will about a week after the burial. The will left everything to Anjette and her 2 daughters.
Wow, so the old lady got around to making the will, huh?
Anjette seemed to lash out at her daughter. Now, Marcia, the oldest daughter, was about 9 years old, and people would often hear Anjette call the child that Lyles-looking son of a bitch.
Oh my
apparently
God.
she looked just like her dad.
Okay.
We've all heard that before. I mean, I honestly do look just like my dad.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't want to admit it, but I do. And, you know, yeah, there have been times when my mom would jokingly be like, oh, you little, my dad's name looking thing, or, you know,
right.
oh, you look just like them Hyatts. And it's true, we all look alike.
Right.
But kind of jokingly, but I can't imagine her being like, you look like that son of a bitch.
You're a high, cock, ass, wife, piece of crap person.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard my dad say, you act just like your mama, and I knew that that was supposed to be an insult.
Yeah.
But when he would say that, I always would just be like, thank you.
Thank you, because she seems more reasonable right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
Anjette would reportedly verbally berate the little girl and even threaten to kill her a couple of times.
Yeah, see, that's crazy.
Marcia became sick in the winter of 1958 with a headache and a cough. Now, Anjette treated it like most Southern mamas, gave her some whiskey, little sugar.
Rub some dirt on it.
But it made the little girl worse. The girl had, you know, a pretty extended hospital stay. And during this time, Anjette was again very doting at the hospital every day, bringing the little girl fruit juices, teas, caring for her, special, medicinal concoctions.
Okay, so we're at her daughter now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's... There's not a lot of good luck around her.
Well, for all that roots she's working,
yeah,
it don't sound like she's working
two husbands,
many optimistic spells.
An ex-mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, and okay.
The child was hallucinating and had failing kidneys. Some reports say the child would talk about how bugs were just crawling on her skin.
Oh, wow.
And she would just scratch and, you know, obviously was hallucinating, and that she'd call out that these beasts were coming to get her. Anjette's reaction was to laugh at the kid. I mean, doctors and nurses thought it was really peculiar behavior for a mother who has a sick, potentially dying child in the hospital to be laughing at this kid and making fun of her.
Who are out of their mind and seeing things obviously not there.
Yeah, I mean, she would laugh. She would make fun of her. Would, you know, just be like, oh, she's so stupid. Look at her, you know.
Okay.
Marcia eventually died on April 4th, 1958. Hospital employees and other townspeople were suspicious of the death. It seemed that anyone who was close to Anjette died of mysterious illnesses. Was it a run of bad luck for this woman? Or was there something more sinister at play? An autopsy was performed on Marcia. They found traces of arsenic in her system.
Oh, God. Well, that's a horrible way to fucking kill somebody. Your own daughter?
Once they perform the autopsy, they find the arsenic in her system. They start asking questions. Anjette went as far as bringing her youngest daughter, Carla, to the doctor. Carla told him that Marcia and other kids were playing doctor and taking medicine, which was poison.
Oh.
Like, oh, they were playing with this, and, oh, you know, and it ends up, it's poison.
Okay.
And Anjette even called parents of one of the children to say it was possible the kids had been poisoned during playtime.
So one of these kids brought arsenic, is basically the story.
But this only made investigators and medical professionals more suspicious.
Right, because that happens all the time. Kids that have arsenic to play with.
The bodies of her former husbands, and I say husbands, because there was a couple, and mother-in-law were exhumed and re-examined. It was determined that all three had suffered from arsenic poisoning. Yay.
Yeah, okay, I did not.
Big winner.
Yes.
A conversation with the parents of Marcia's friends revealed that actually never received a phone call from Anjette. She was only telling the doctor and investigators that she was making these phone calls, and went as far as like staging one in front of the investigators.
Right.
You know, oh, well, your child could have possibly been poisoned.
Okay.
But when they go talk to these parents, she had never called anyone.
Wow. She's just a big con.
Anjette was in the hospital shortly after Marcia's death with a varicose vein. surgery.
Okay.
She was in a wheelchair and unable to walk. Well, it was during this